Good morning. Today I'm going to continue talking about reactivity and the importance of groundwork and your basics. So when you're working with a reactive puppy, a reactive dog, you shouldn't be taking that dog to a place that will overwhelm them and that will trigger them to a point where they're barking, they're lunging, they just can't deal with it. You need to be able to do the groundwork first with your dog to get them to focus on you, to get them to do their sits, their stays at your home or an environment that they're very, very comfortable in. If they can't do these basic things with you as their guide, they can't be working through their reactivity. We can't take a child who's struggling with reading and throw them in an advanced reading class. Not sure if that's a great example, but that's what I can think of off the top of my head right now. We need to take things slow and steady without overwhelming the puppy or the dog. We work up to these things. We don't throw them in the middle of the things that trigger them. Okay? The goal is to be able to be in those situations that trigger them and to have a calm dog in those situations. But that's not going to happen overnight. Especially if you have a dog that's been very reactive for a period of time. It's always easier to start when they're really young. If you have a reactive puppy, the process can be longer because they still have puppy brain in some respects. It depends on the dog, of course, but in other respects, it can be easier because the habits haven't been formed yet. Okay, so if my dog is triggered by something, but in her comfort areas, her comfort environment, she can't focus on me, then we can't work on reactivity. If my dog can't hold a basic stay in her comfort areas, we can't work on reactivity. Because working through reactivity, your dog needs to first learn or begin to learn self-control. They also need to be building a strong connection with you. And that's where focus comes in. They need to be looking towards you as their guide, their person, following your cues, your body language. And in learning to follow you, it will also build up their confidence in other areas. Because our dogs can learn, oh, I'm safe. I'm with my person. I'm secure. They're my, I don't believe in alpha. I really don't. But I do believe that we need to guide and lead our dogs. And teach our dogs and work together. I kind of view it as like a team, but we're like their leader or their teacher. Because like in teams we have leaders, right? So with leaders we have guides, we have teachers. I also believe we can learn from our dogs and they can learn from us. So I do believe it's two ways. But when it comes to reactivity, we really need that connection with our dogs. We really need that strong focus. They need to be able to sit and hold their stays. They need to be able to sit and wait for their food. All of these things are self-control. They also need to be able to self-regulate, or at the very least be learning to self-regulate. Okay, be able to calm themselves down. It's always best if our dogs can learn to calm themselves down. That's absolutely the best scenario. And for most dogs, that's crate training. There are always exceptions to the rule. And there are dogs that have been crate trained that can't self-regulate. And there's dogs that haven't been crate trained that are excellent at self-regulation. So nothing's really black and white. It's measuring where our dogs are at in various situations and environments, and how our dogs respond and interact within their worlds, and understand what our dogs can handle, what our dogs aren't ready to handle, and what our dogs may never be able to handle. Okay. So, you worked on your groundwork, you worked on focus, your dog is watching you, your dog is checking in with you, your dog is doing their sits, their stays, their downs. You're able to ask them to sit and stay, you're able to walk around, and they hold it. Okay? Another one you can do, sit, stays, drop the food, and they're not allowed touching it until you release them. All of this is impulse control. And when dealing with reactivity, you need impulse control. Also, every time you teach your dog something, you're also building their confidence. And you're connecting with them. And all of these things play a part in working through reactivity. So now you're ready to start, okay? So I would suggest making a list or making a mental note of the things that set your dogs off, the things that trigger your dogs. Okay. And if you know, if your dog was attacked, heaven forbid, or your dog had a really bad experience with another dog at a young age, any age can affect them, absolutely. But that critical age from when we, as a stereotypically, pick them up from 8 to 20 weeks is where the socialization predominantly takes place. After that, it's really working through things. Okay, so you're ready to work with your dogs. And you know your triggers. You don't take your dog right to the trigger. You create space. You've been connecting with your dog. Your dog can focus on you. Maybe you'll implement some pattern games. Maybe you'll do umbilical training. You could do clicker training. There's a wide variety of options. If you have a lot of dog experience, you can probably figure out what's best for your dog. If you don't, you can always reach out to me, and I can help you figure out what the best approach is for you and your dog. Now, there's a few different ways of approaching reactivity. For me, as a general rule, I like umbilical training, lots of focus work, lots of sits, lots of stays. Well, mostly stays, actually. I love implementing the game of tug. It helps build up confidence. I'll go into tug another time. I have a video on tug on my YouTube channel. There's lots of tug videos. You can just Google tug or YouTube tug for building up confidence. There's lots of things you can utilize when working towards your triggers with your dog. Okay. The way I like to do it is I'm walking towards the trigger. I'm asking for focus. My dog's focusing, but I know she's going in the direction of struggling, might not be struggling yet, but I'm really, really aware of how she's perceiving the environment and how she's perceiving the trigger that we are coming up to. Okay, so approaching the trigger. I'm talking to my dog. I usually get her kind of excited, happy, connected with me. Sometimes I play with her. Sometimes just ask her for the basics, because the basics she knows, she's confident in, calms her down. But I never take her right up to that trigger unless she's ready. Okay? If I notice any discomfort, we are out of there. We do our little flips or turns around. Nala, come on, Nala, jump. I ask her to jump. Everyone knows I ask my dog to jump. It's her favoriteest thing in the world. I ask my dog to jump, helps calm her down because she loves to jump, helps her to focus on me. I'm giving her some fun. But she's safe, right? Because I didn't put her right in that situation. She's safe. She knows she's safe with me. So if you've been following me, you know I had an 8-week-old reactive puppy. And yeah, it's taken some time, and she's not perfect, and it's genetically reactive, and she'll never be completely, I don't think she'll ever be completely unreactive, unfortunately. She's night and day compared to where we started. She can do so many things around lots of dogs, which she didn't used to be able to do, so I'm really, really grateful for that. There's so many causes to reactivity. For mine, it was absolutely genetic, and possibly she was attacked at 4 months, just right around the ending of that critical stage. I think she was 20 weeks. Anyways, those things affected her reactivity. And I also have a dog that gets overwhelmed very, very easily. That's going to be genetic. It's not an easy thing to work through. I love my girl, but she's got a couple traits that are a little bit challenging, I guess. Sometimes I call her my wonderful little challenge. I love her to pieces. She does have some things that we've had to work through. We've done a lot of work. Okay, so also be conscious of the dog you have in front of you, right? Like, there's going to be some dogs that have reactivity. It's actually not going to take very long to break them of it. It's going to probably be pretty straightforward. My Missy was like that. I mentioned that the last podcast. You're going to have dogs like Nala where it's genetic and it's really ingrained. And you can absolutely work with that, and you can improve it 100%. And sometimes you can get them completely over it or through it. But nothing's really black and white, and you really have to just deal with it or look at it, each situation independently. Okay, so you're working towards your triggers. So you always get your dog out of there. You always engage with them. You give them what they need. Some dogs need lots of excitability. Some dogs need lots of calm. You know your dog. Give them what they need in those moments to help them to focus on you, to help them to be calm. I like calming techniques. I can talk about that another time. That also helps with impulse work. And you get them out of there. And then the next day, maybe you can go a little bit closer. Maybe it'll take you a few months. Maybe it'll take you a year. You always work closer and closer towards those things, those triggers, until your dog can pass them calmly. Now, one way I get my dog past things now, after we've done a lot of work, again, depends on the dog. For a general rule, I wouldn't say this would work with most dogs. Okay? Most dogs, you need to do groundwork first. Nala was that dog. But if we're passing a dog now and I think she might be a little reactive, I take some treats out of my pouch and I just start tossing them into the grass, like kind of away from the trigger as we're walking past. And she's great. She does great. That's not a problem. Unless it's like a really narrow pathway, like, yeah, that does it for us. Often she can pass without reacting now, though. So just kind of got to be aware of each situation as it comes. Okay. What else? Clicker training. That for a lot of dogs is a good way to go. Could do clicker training and treat training. I do those combined for sure. This is kind of not sort of to do with reactivity. It's just kind of like a nice little tip. Be really conscientious of your words and your hand signals. Okay, we can't be repeating our words. If you ask your dog to sit and they sit, they've sat. You don't have to repeat that. I've seen a lot of people say sit, 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 sit. Well, no, your dog sat. That's good. You can reward that. Your dog is sitting and holding a stay and you're nervous that they're going to let go of that stay, so you keep saying stay, 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 stay. Well, no, you don't need to do that. If they lose their stay, you can always return them to their stay and ask again. Right? Don't be over repeating things. Dogs will tune us out. And in the calmer, like when we're doing our training, unless you're really engaging with your dog, it's calmer the better. The fewer words you use, the better. The more hand signals you use over words, the better. If your dog can do everything with hand signals or a whistle even, if your dog can do what you're asking of them, or what you have worked with them, they know what's expected or they know what's wanted, then they're actually going to listen or follow a whole lot better the fewer words you use. There's an appropriate place to use words and there's too many words. Okay. I'm going to leave it at that for today. I hope you gained something from that. And I'm sure I will continue to do podcasts on reactivity. Okay, have a good day. Bye-bye.